Fail faster to succeed sooner. The failure we're talking about is the prototype. The purpose of our prototypes is to go learn something experientially. It's not what I call an engineering prototype. So you can't fail unless you paid no attention and didn't learn something. So now that I'm learning something, I'm failure immune. I can't fail because I'm learning my way forward. We're not saying it's great to fail. What we're saying is you have to iterate to learn your way forward.
Is meaning something that we find or something that we build?
The answer is yes and no. One of the lines we're using these days is stop waiting around to find the meaning of life. Start designing more meaning in life.
What are the core tenets of life design?
The core observations start with, as soon as you're doing that thing you love for money, you're doing it on the market's terms, not yours.
Interesting.
So when you're not doing it for money, oh, you're not a professional, you're an amateur. Well, let's break the word amateur down. What does amateur mean? It's from the Latin. I do it for love. Ama. An amateur does something they love for the love of it.
How long should it take before you decide whether or not to settle on this version of yourself versus to pivot out of it and try something else?
It's when life says, hey, it's time.
Dave Evans, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing fine.
I'm super excited to learn about your fascinating background and to get into the topic of your new book, How to Live a Meaningful Life. It's something that we all want, right? I want it.
That's what they tell you. Yes, the question's been around for a while now.
Well, what do you think people are actually trying to solve when they say, I want more meaning?
Well, that's how we got here. I mean, why write another book? Hey, we wrote the book on designing your life. We wrote the book on designing your career. We kind of thought we were done. We sort of covered a lot of territory. And then after the pandemic, and especially after the Great Resignation, 52 million people walk off the job looking for something better. I don't know how many of them landed better, but they all walked off looking for it. We started hearing this report back, which is, hey, I did all this stuff. It's still not working for me. And we say, well, what's not working for you? And we heard this literally thousands of times, so there's something going on. And it was either I'm not having the impact I need to. There's got to be something that makes it matter. We heard that mostly. And the second to that, we heard it's just not as fulfilling as I had hoped. So in the present moment, in the zeitgeist, maybe not in the philosophical textbook, but in the zeitgeist, what we were hearing the meaning question be is impact and fulfillment. And the first thing we do as designers is start with empathy, what's really going on, and then we take a hard look at that thing and say, is that the best way to define the problem generatively, or do we need to reframe it? And our immediate response was, oh, both of those are dead ends. Technical term is you're screwed. If that's what you're after, I can explain why. So we need to reframe this.
As an engineer, as a designer, I mean, how did you transition to talking about and coaching people ultimately on mass scale to find more meaning in their lives?
Well, that's a long story. Some people will say that, life is really walking out your woundedness. And back in the early 70s, I'm a 19-year-old sophomore at Stanford. I'm turning 73 in a couple of weeks, so back when the dinosaurs roamed the campus. And I walk into the Career Center and I say, hey, can you help me? And they said, well, sure, we got a whole building full of people, love helping students like you. We just can't wait to get started. I go, great. So what do I want? And they go, right, that's the question. What do you want? I go, right, that's the question. They go, okay. I go, okay. Like staring at each other. And I kind of, well, how does the help start? They go, well, what do you want? I go, that's why I'm here. And they go, oh, you don't understand. Here's how this works. You tell us what you want, then we help you get it. And I go, that's useless. Getting stuff is easy. How do I figure out what it is I really want? What am I supposed to be doing with this life of mine? And they go, oh, you're supposed to know. So the adults were singularly unhelpful, and all the grown-ups were. And I'm like, why are we keeping this secret about how you're supposed to figure it out like you're supposed to know? That's where this began. So I just was trying to figure my own life out for, a dozen or so years. And then finally ended up in high tech. That's a long story. And then found myself on the first corporate culture committee at Apple Computer in 1979, working with Steve Jobs. And I suddenly found out everybody wants their life to matter. Everybody wants their work to matter to them. The work's the largest place we expend our human energies. Number one place people find meaning, as it turns out. So, that's going on for everybody. So this became not only my own personal quest of figuring life out, but helping others figure their life out too. Fast forward. So I talk about this on the side. I've got a day job, for 20 or 30 years. Then I get invited to teach a course at Cal Berkeley about 1999, which was Finding Your Vocation, subtitled as Your Calling. Taught that, I thought, for one experimental semester, at the end of which one kid says, hey, Dave, my roommate couldn't take it this fall. You're coming back in the spring, right? I said, hadn't planned on that. Tell you what, you get 9 other students to come in, 10 minimum, I'll show up. That's the deal. You get 10, I'll come. 14 semesters later, I'm a little stuck. And then my friend Bill starts at Stanford, and I say, hey, what are you guys doing over there? That's a better drive. And that began the Life Design Lab at Stanford in 2007. And that's how we got here. So basically, an unemployed marketing guy slowly but surely turns into an educational reformer.
The Life Design Lab at Stanford.
Yep.
Well, first, before we get into that, what's the difference between a vocation and a job?
Great question. So when we talk about the world of work, very often people will speak in sort of 3 categories paradigmatically about your philosophical relationship with your workplace. Do you have a job, a career, or a calling, or vocation, or a passion, we might say today? Typically, when people talk about these 3 things, a job, a career, and a calling, they stack them up hierarchically. Job at the bottom, career on top of that, calling at the very top. Bill and I don't see it that way. We see these as just different, not better and worse. You do a job for money. You do a career for professional advancement and mastery. And you do a calling for missional fulfillment and value expression. They're fundamentally different. They're not better and worse. They're just different in nature. Now, if you're going to do, quote, just a job, just for the money, you don't want to do a hateful job. You don't want to do a job you hate or is soul-crushing. But it doesn't necessarily have to light your fire. Your meaning-making and your money-making don't have to be the same thing. Most people assume it should be. That's a very modern elitist idea, frankly. The overwhelming majority of humans who've walked the surface of the earth couldn't make a living at what they love. That's okay. So the difference between a job and a calling is how you think about it.
But there is this sense that people who have been so lucky as to make money and commercialize
what they
that which gives them meaning,
yes,
that they are somehow like winning.
Well, yes and no. It's an easy archetype to be attracted to, and if you meet somebody for whom that is the case, my guess is you're probably one of those people. The creator economy is full of them, by the way. However, as soon as you're doing that thing you love for money, you're doing it on the market's terms, not yours.
Interesting.
So when you're not doing it for money, oh, you're not a professional, you're an amateur. Well, let's break the word amateur down. What does amateur mean? It's from the Latin. I do it for love. Ama. An amateur does something they love for the love of it. I know lots of people who are making money what they love, and they don't love it the same anymore because they're a growing form of a human being or an artist, and now they're stuck. There was an artist my late wife and I loved very much. We used to go to the Sausalito Art Festival every year. We saw him for years, and then he was gone for about 4 or 5 years. And we came back, and then he reappeared. Michael, where have you been? Oh, I just stopped out. What? Why? Oh, I hate this shit. What? We love your work. He says, yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm so stuck. I'm so sick of it, and I can't afford to stop now because now he's making really good money. This stuff sells for $5,000 to $15,000 a pop, not $500, and he's working out of the van. And he sort of believed that he was stuck because now he's doing it on the market terms. So both the money and meaning in the same place and money and meaning in separate places have pros and cons. There's not a fundamental better or worse. They're just different. I know lots of people who could make a living at what they love, and they won't because they want to retain the freedom.
They want to retain the love for that which
Absolutely.
They love.
That's my poetry, my way.
Fascinating. So it's just like a different form of golden handcuffs.
It's a different form of relationship with the constraint of being a finite being.
I have, it is funny. It's a funny perspective shift because I love music, and there was a time in my life, not anymore, but there was a time in my life when I, romanticized this idea of being able to make music for a living. And
right.
I was never good enough to do that, I don't think.
Right.
But over the years, I've amassed a number of really talented, really successful friends who,
right.
For all, by all metrics, have made it as musicians. And sometimes, being intimate, not intimate, but close friends with them, you do get the sense that they feel burnout just like the rest of us.
Oh, yeah. And the game has really changed. I was just talking to a 47-year-old singer-songwriter, successful musical artist from Nashville, who is suffering, has a family of 3, is working, but very much expresses what most people will tell you about the music business now, which is it has never ever been easier to get your work out there, and never ever been harder to make a living doing it.
It's so true.
Because you can't sell music. Music's free.
Yeah.
So it's all about touring. It's all about touring and shtick and swag, and it's exhausting.
And you're bound to the road.
You are bound to the road. He's a 47-year-old father of 3, and he's not really into touring 275 days a year anymore.
Wow. It's crazy because everybody,
You have to.
yeah, looks at being a rock star as like the ultimate ideal.
Yeah, the Stones are still on the road.
They're still on the road after all these years. Yeah. I mean, and dealing with that, like, the ephemeral, what is that? What was that movie with Bill Murray? Lost in Translation.
Lost in Translation.
Yeah. Such a fantastic film. Is meaning something that we find or something that we build?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, because the answer is yes and no, or hopefully yes and yes. One of the lines we're using these days is stop waiting around to find the meaning of life. Start designing more meaning in life. Now, so I'm answering your question like thing 2 is better. It's not better, it's more accessible. But your preposition really matters. So the meaning of life, the ultimate existential, aspirational, on my deathbed, can I answer the question, did it matter? Yes. And in retrospect, I feel good about that. If that's kind of the meaning of life, which is the thing that people have been, breaking their pick on for literally thousands of years, and rightly so. It's a question we should live aspirationally toward, but you can't answer it. And so from a design point of view, we're design guys. We like to build things real people can use in real time. So a better design question, a better problem to work on, a solvable problem is how could I make more meaning in life now? So that's what we're working on, is so how to live the meaningful life right now.
And is that what you're doing with the Stanford Design Lab that you've created?
The Stanford Life Design Lab has the mission of applying the innovation principles of design thinking to the wicked problem of designing your life. That's what we're moving to. We're just the guys that take this design thinking innovation methodology and apply it to yourself, not to a product. And we apply it to you apparently pretty broadly about life design, career design, and now meaning design. And then the objective, what's the outcome, is if you pull this off, if we give you the tools effectively, we will have given you a conscious competency, an awareness that you know how to go about life and vocational wayfinding, how to find your way. Life is a long improv skit, but you can get better at improv. We teach improv skills.
What are the core tenets of life design?
Well, the core observations of what we're doing when we're designing life is we start with, it's a wicked problem. That's a technical term. There are lots of ways to think. So design thinking, which is the modern name of human-centered design. So Stanford started this thing back in 1963, which was the lunatic fringe at the time, where design isn't just crafts, is the millennia of history of craft design, artistic design, graphic design, 3D design, furniture. Here in Southern California, car design at the Art Center. That's been around forever. You can get a master's in design at Stanford and still be lousy at drawing. And real designers go, that's morally wrong. We go, whoa, we're doing an innovation methodology approach. So there's a method approach to design and there's a craft approach to design. We're the method guys. And the method says you start with the way things are, and then you define the best possible problem to work on that's generative and freeing, and then you have a bunch of ideas and go forward about it. So when we do the empathy step on life design, we run into a couple of things that people seem to be getting wrong, and that's getting them stuck unnecessarily. Probably the biggest one is, I'm supposed to figure it out. So is this it? Is this what my life should be? Have I found the meaning of my life? Have I found my purpose, my passion? And we kind of go, no. There's more aliveness in every single person than one lifetime permits them to live out, i.e. there's more than one of you in there. Which Max are we seeing today? And so since there's more than one of you in there, that's the good news. So you're not all going to happen. Okay, that's fine. And now, which of you should we give a try to? And oh, by the way, which is the right one? There's no one right you. There are lots of good yous. And it turns out we don't know this thing called the future. So you can't analyze it. You can't engineer the right answer because there is no right answer. You can't technically, quantify it because it's an experience. So what you have to do is try it. So design is an empirical bottom-up experimentation approach to life. We call it prototype iteration. Got an idea? Let's go try a prototype and learn something about it and iterate that prototype enough times so we say, I think this is a keeper. Let's go do that. I'm going to do this podcast thing. I think it's going to work for me. And then you make a commitment and off you go. So life design turns out to be an artful way of iterating ideas into reality.
Now, how long should it take before you decide whether or not to settle on this version of yourself versus to pivot out of it and try something else?
That question comes up a lot. So like, when do I do this? And our answer is when life in your soul tells you it's time. Look, first of all, we all want it both ways. I can tell you exactly what's wrong with my life right now, what aspirations, what longings are unmet. That's okay. That just means I'm not dead yet. But when it's like, this is really not working for me. And maybe there are times when it's really not working for me, but I'm constrained. There's actually nothing I can do about it. And what I need to learn how to do is get the most from it I possibly can and suffer the rest nobly. When I'm stuck in the house because of bad air and the fires in Northern California, and my wife is literally dying of cancer, and we can't go anywhere, I'm just watching her die, that kind of sucks. I'd really rather pivot from that. There's no pivoting. There's getting through it well. So there are times when you just have to get through it. But if you're not stuck, truly stuck, and it's not working for you, then let's make a move. So, but there's no rule. It's not every 3 years. It's not every year and a half. It's not every 10. It's when life says, hey, it's time.
Yeah, and I think failure is part of the course. But don't they say in tech that you're always better off failing fast? You don't want to fail slowly, right?
Well, okay, so we talk about failure immunity, which is fail faster to succeed sooner.
Fail faster to succeed sooner.
Now, that's a clever line, and it actually confuses a lot of people. When we're talking about that as designers, the failure we're talking about is the prototype. The purpose of our prototypes is to go learn something. I don't really know anything about podcasting. What would that be like? Maybe I could sit in and watch what Max does. I can find out what these people are doing. What the heck is a creator economy? Maybe I could go up to Boise and visit Nathan Barry, who runs Kit, that's the backdrop for a whole bunch of these guys, and see what's going on with this creator economy anyway. I don't understand this thing. So I go listen in on it in order to see what's going on there. And then as that evolves over time, it either starts making sense to me or it doesn't make sense to me. And then I start looking for opportunities to participate. So those are the kind of steps you would go through. But you don't know going in how it's going to work. So each of those steps, I went in and I sat in on this podcast and it was boring. Well, okay, that's one. So is that I don't like Max or I don't like podcasts. So go do 3 or 4 more. And if they, quote, fail, you can't fail because all I wanted to do was learn something. So in design, a prototype's job is to learn something experientially. It's not what I call an engineering prototype. So let's say this microphone has, a breath cover on it, so you don't get that sound when I do that. And we're trying to make sure that that thing works properly. So I've got 4 of them here, and I think this is the right one. And now I'm going to test it. I'm going to call that a prototype. And my goal in testing that microphone cover is, does it work? And then it doesn't work. It goes, shoot, I got to go back to the drawing board. So an engineering prototype asks the question, does this work well, and am I done? Am I right? That's very different than, hey, I wonder how this works. Let's go learn something. So the prototypes we do in design are all about learning. So you can't fail unless you paid no attention and didn't learn something. So now that I'm learning something, I'm failure immune. I can't fail because I'm learning my way forward. And if I do that faster, I will eventually learn my way to the thing I really want to do. So fail faster to succeed sooner. That's where that line comes from. Now it then gets pushed asymptotically out to the edge where run fast and break things. That's the other Silicon Valley one-liner. Some of that's just lore. It's kind of sort of the X Games meets venture capital or something. But we're not saying it's great to fail. What we're saying is you have to iterate to learn your way forward.
Interesting. So would you say the crux of your work with your latest book is to apply the principles of design to discovering one's own meaning in their lives?
It's applying the principles of design to being able to design the experience of having more meaning day to day in the life I'm already in. That's the goal we pursued, because what we found was people were looking in too small a corner. If the only ways I can be confident my life is meaningful is because of the impact I've had and changed the world, or because I feel I am fulfilled, if those are the 2 things I have to have in order to check the meaning box, That's not going to work for most people most of the time, and I can explain why if we want to. So what we read is we reframe the problem to what is solvable. If it's not solvable, it's not a problem. It's a circumstance. So I don't want to just accept an immovable circumstance. I want to solve a real problem. And the real problem is there are lots of other ways to experience meaning making that are more available. Let's go get good at those right now.
Yeah. So how do we do that?
How do we do that? So the first thing, when we looked at those two problems of impact and fulfillment, the problem with impact is, first of all, impact's a lovely thing. I'm trying to have an impact. You're trying to have an impact. However, the thing about impact is, number one, it's a thing, and you're not. So if you have an impact, your experience of what it means to you and to the world atrophies quickly. The half-life on that is very, very short. I got called by the U.S. Olympic Committee. Could you please help us? Help you what? You guys are the best in the world. Well, there's nothing as exciting as ascending the Olympic dais and getting your medal, or as terrifying as coming back down. So now you're on the other side of this thing. If you got the impact, I'm the best in the world, 3, 2, 1, what have you done for me lately? And that's true of all kinds of people. So impact doesn't last. And frankly, most of the time it doesn't work, because even if you do everything right, there's all these other unintended consequences or things over which you have no control. The other 8 billion people might go off script when you're not looking, and something doesn't work out. So, oh, shoot. So if I'm banking on impact, most of the time it doesn't work. If it does work, it doesn't last. So now I'm stuck in a never enough treadmill. So I need to look elsewhere. And then the fulfillment thing, you can't be fulfilled because you're bigger than a lifetime. So according to Abraham Maslow in 1943, the defining paper of the hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, from which one gets fulfillment, it's in print, 1943, what do you have to do? Become all that you can be. Well, we know you are more than you have time to become. So if I have to be fully manifested, that would be the way we'd say it now, you can't, because you haven't got enough time. So you're doomed. You're going to run out of gas before you get to the end of that road. So those two things run out of gas, and both of them share one thing. They're transactions. They're getting something done. They're accomplishing some outcome. And there's another world. It's really another consciousness. So your brain can't grok the whole world all the time. But there's a bigger world going on than this transactional world where we're getting stuff done all the time and making impacts and fulfilling, expressing ourselves. There's this experience of the moment that I'm in right now, which we call the flow world. We've all heard about flow, the psychology of optimal experience, being in the zone. Well, where is it that being in the state of flow happens? The place it happens is what we call the flow world, which is really just the present moment, the thing that's actually happening in front of us right now. So like right now, I'm sitting across the table, I'm looking at Max, and am I thinking about how many people are going to dial into this thing? How much in real time? How much is going to be streaming? Is that going to move the needle on sales or not? I mean, what's his market segmentation anyway? So if that's where I'm at, I'm all in the transactional world, which is about outcomes, and those outcomes are in a place called the future, which is a place not here. In fact, where it is in my head, as opposed to a nice table. And I got such a lovely greeting. Max is sitting in a lawn chair out in the front and goes, hey, welcome. This whole thing starts with this welcome experience. Like, here's a really thoughtful guy who wants to see me. Am I actually connecting with this conversation? That's what's happening right now. So the flow world is what's right here. And the transactional world is, frankly, what's behind me, evaluating and judging, or in front of me, preparing and aspiring. But in between, there's this thing called the present moment. And can I enter into that present moment? So there are these we've identified 4 categories of experience in the present moment, in the flow world, where we have access to experiences that are alive-making, human, fulfilling, and therefore meaningful, which are wonder, the experience of awe and wonder, things bigger than yourself, flow itself, entering into flow, which we think is much more available than you've been told before, coherence, when you actually catch yourself in the act of acting like yourself, and then formative community, when you're with other people, not just in a hanging out for fun way, but in a becoming better people way. So those 4 categories, which are not the comprehensive definition of meaning by any means, but we're pretty sure all 4 of those are available to almost everybody, almost all the time. So that's low-hanging fruit, go get it.
So at the intersection of those 4 components, that's where you find meaning?
No, in the experience of it at the time. Let's take wonder. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I go outside, and there's the sunset. And the sunset, and I'm actually focusing on it, and it's terrific, and it's actually gorgeous, and it arrests me. It stops me. So I'm actually having an experience of self-transcendency. So Maslow actually realized, by the way, that he was wrong. He always suspected that self-actualization wasn't the top of the pyramid. And then late in his 70s, just before he died, and therefore he never published, though others have, but not many people have heard about it, surprisingly, the top layer isn't self-actualization, it's self-transcendence. And the result of actualization is fulfillment. It's all about me. The result of transcendence is meaning making. So if I want a meaning experience, it's not like I want to be all of me. I actually want to have an experience of something bigger than me. I am part of that which is bigger than me is the best way to feel like being the real you. Get beyond yourself. So the sunset reminds me that there's something really big going on out there. And it kind of enlivens me and the center of my chest warms up and I get this alive experience. And so that's human making. And it's meaningful because it reminds me that I'm participating in this bigger than myself thing. It's not a result. It's not an outcome. It's an experience that's more human making. So that which is more human making, more alive making, more self-realizing is a meaningful experience. Now it's short, but I'm coming back tomorrow because they're going to make another one and most of this stuff is free. Joseph Campbell, I'll finish. Joseph Campbell, when being interviewed years ago on PBS, said, you know, the thing about meaning, I'm not sure that's really it. I think what people are really after is just the rapture of being alive. The competing title for the book was Fully Alive.
Wow.
And so the point being, you can't be fulfilled because there's too much of you. Isn't that the good news? But you can be fully alive. You can be entirely present to what's going on in a way that feels as alive as you can get.
So those components then, I just want to make sure that I understand it. They are the necessary but not sufficient conditions, each independent of one another.
Yes.
For being in the present moment.
Yeah, while in the moment, I'm tapping into that transcendent thing that allows me to feel kind of the fullness of my humanity. So wonder takes me into this awe thing that strikes me bigger than myself. Flow, I fully drop into the engaged thing. I am so involved and so engaged that it animates me. In coherence, I'm aware that I am actually living out consistency with my values and my priorities, which has this aspirational feel of moving toward my authentic self. That feels alive making. And formative community, I'm in a place where the real me and the real you are echoing back and forth in this generative way that's actually accumulating and feels incredibly alive making. So all of these things affirm, I'm here, I deserve to exist, this thing's on its way to becoming better, let's do it again.
It's so cool. I mean, and they can sometimes overlap, can they not?
Totally. Sure.
Like awe and wonder, like looking at a grand vista, panoramic view, a beautiful sunset. There are definitely experiences of flow that I would say have also coincided with
the
awe and
whole
wonder.
group flow. I mean, the team sports, everybody was playing out of their minds. You know, they drop into this deep level of engagement at the same time, or while dancing. You're dancing better than you ever did. What happened there? You know.
Is there a difference between meaning and purpose?
Sure. So meaning, purpose, vocation, calling, we get into all that stuff. So purpose is directional. It's moving me toward something, right? And so I think we speak about both purpose and meaning have this problem of the false singularity. What is the meaning of my life? Have I found my one true purpose? And this singularity idea is what gets in people's way because they're on track for a purpose, but I don't think it's quite it, so I guess I haven't found it yet. And that's not, and it's not wrong that you haven't found it yet, but you're wrong that there isn't it. We define the simplest way to understand what is a person is that a human being is a becoming. We're an unfolding reality. So if I'm not all here yet, and I'm a dynamic, growing thing, how can I now know what my 80-year-old self knows that I don't? So meaning might change, purpose might change. I want to live meaningfully. I don't want to direct my life purposefully. I want to work on things that matter. But is that the end game? Not so sure. Is it the perfect answer? No, but it's good enough for now.
And which of those two is there one of the two that are more closely related with happiness?
I think that might depend on the individual. So if meaning is a little more experiential and purpose is a little more aspirational, if I just put it that way, one is more about my engagement of the moment, the other is about the direction I'm moving. There are some people who are a little more future-oriented. Maybe the impact thing is more important to them. Some people more about the fullness of their experience. If I'm going to read Wordsworth, it's pretty experiential. If I'm going to read, Daniel Kahneman, it's pretty future-oriented. So I think it depends a little on the trajectory of the life. I don't think all people are wired the same that way.
Very interesting. How do you know if you're chasing meaning versus just feeling relief from discomfort?
Yeah, so where does solace leave off and meaning begin? Well, I think meaning is pretty comforting, though I don't think it's anesthetizing. So like genuine meaning experiences are always enlivening. They're always in reality. So they never take you away from reality. They never take you out of things. They may focus you on something, but they're not removing you. There's not avoiding. We're not avoiding pain. We're not avoiding anything. So I think being more comfortable can, for many people, be about the elimination of difficulty. Meaning is about entering fully into the moment. So a lot of meaning-making things are difficult. There can be high friction. There can be pain. There can be suffering. Those are all compatible with meaning. They're not necessarily compatible with comfort.
Is there an aspect of meaning that you find to be widely misunderstood among high performers?
Yeah, the chief one is that it's just about high performance, that it's all about outcomes. And if I'm stuck on that single point of view, that's the number one problem. And not only is that a misunderstanding, it's a misunderstanding with a long tail on it. We just had a long conversation with Bob Waldinger, who is he's an MD psychiatrist on the Harvard faculty.
We've had him on the show. He's great.
He's a great guy.
The Harvard study, the 80-year-long running.
Yeah, the longest running adult study of human behavior ever done on the planet, the Grant study. Long run by George Vaillant, and then taken over by his colleague Bob Waldinger some years ago. He writes the book The Good Life. He's come to the show. He's a great guy. Oh, and happens to be a Zen master. That's kind of cool. So my partner Bill and I sat in his living room a couple of weeks ago and chatted about these things for a couple of hours, had office hours, and this question came up. We were talking about it, and Bob chimes in and goes, "Oh yeah, this is, in fact, it's a bigger problem than you think, this over-indexed on goals, because we now know physiologically from science that the difference between extrinsic motivators and intrinsic motivators is significant. So extrinsic motivators, success, outcomes, money, save the world, solve cancer, fix fat reduction, you name it, those are all extrinsic, outside-in motivators. Good things. Then intrinsic, beauty, love, compassion, sincerity, those are inside out. We now know that if a life is lived overwhelmingly indexed on extrinsic motivators at the expense of intrinsic motivators, you not only are cutting short your experience, you are atrophying your capacity to sense them. So the part of your brain and your physiology that actually can respond to the intrinsic motivator reaction system starts weakening. You are literally dehumanizing yourself. And so if you want to have the whole human experience, what Lisa Miller calls all of your both awakened brain and your achieving brain. We have a much more sophisticated understanding of the right brain, left brain thing now. But the left brain, the achieving brain, who was getting stuff done, has taken over, because technology has allowed us to be so productive and so optimized all the time. And this feedback loop of a result, I got paid, we won, we grew the company, we fixed this thing, we made new friends, we expanded the house, so, well, if it's meaningful, what happened? I mean, we are completely organized around production. But there's also participation. I'm not just a production engine, not a chunk of a big factory called humanity. I'm a living, breathing, embodied intelligence that's having this experience of being alive. I'm a participant in the flow world in the present moment. And if I don't tap into that, I'm going to lose it. So there's a little bit of a threat there, actually.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So extrinsic motivation is not necessarily better than or worse than intrinsic motivation, but it can't occur at the expense of the intrinsic motivators.
If it's focused on exclusively, it will be at the expense. That's the issue. So, one way to get your hands on this is, one of the really popular TED Talks is Jill Bolt Taylor's My Stroke of Insight.
Yes, a classic.
A classic. So here's this, scientific neurologist who rather inconveniently has a massive brain tumor in her left brain. and loses her left brain, almost dies, takes 8 years to recover, but then has this experience of being an entirely right-brained person, which transforms her experience of reality. Like, oh my God, it is so different when this part of my consciousness is actually running the store. And now she's a big fan of whole brain, not right brain's cool and left brain's bad. This isn't, win-lose. This is, I want to be a whole person. So we're just advocating for people being whole people. Human-centered design is pro-human.
Human-centered design. It's super interesting. What about for people like you back in the days of you in that college advisor's office that are struggling to figure out what it is that they want?
Right.
We had an episode of the show recently where we were talking about the fact that everybody wants to be at, 10% body fat. Everybody wants to have won the marathon, to have achieved whatever it is that their goal is, but not everybody is necessarily willing to do the work that it takes to achieve those goals.
Right. Well, we all want it both ways. I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want to have my cake and still have 2% body fat.
But if you're not willing to do the work, does that mean that you just don't want it enough?
Well, clearly you don't want it enough. Now, some things are harder to get than others. In fact, I had dinner last night with Jason. So Jason's a young man I met 20 years ago. Kept coming back to office hours. I've ended up mentoring him for a long, long time. Lovely guy. Dropped out of the womb with the most incredibly hard-edged discipline of any person I have ever met. He has, in the last 6 weeks, dropped 12 pounds and reduced his fat percentage by 50% because he got a bad blood report. He's 49, about to turn 50. And his doctor said, well, we're either going to put you on statins and a bunch of other stuff. You've got to do this outrageously demanding diet thing. He goes, okay, I'll do the diet thing. And bang, he just pivots, never looks back. Every time he makes a decision, he does 100% implementation. He is devoid of bad habits. He's disciplined to death. I've often said to him, I covet your brain chemistry. I have no idea what that behavior is like. So it's easier for some than others. But look, I'm a free will oriented person. We do what we choose to do. So if you're not willing to go there, then either be honest with yourself or up the game. And it's easy to want things. Everybody wants everything. But if you're honest with yourself about what am I really desirous of, what do I long for enough to actually pursue, and lean into that, and cut yourself some slack on the stuff you don't really want. Frankly, let go of the goals you don't care enough about to pursue, because why sign up for a failure you didn't invest in the first place? Well, you just assigned yourself a failure electively. I have no intention of doing this thing, but I'm going to make myself feel bad for not doing it.
That's so true. Yeah.
It's just stupid.
It is. Well, but it's something that we all can be vulnerable to.
But we're shitting on ourselves. So Bill and I said, look, we try very hard to be neither prescriptive nor proscriptive. I'm not here to tell you who Max is. What you really need to do, Max, that's not my thing. We do ideas and tools. We reframe your problem to make it more manageable, if we can, and then we give you ideas and tools about how you might approach it. It's up to you what to do with that. Any worldview, any life goal, you're in charge of that stuff. So, why do I want to sign up for claiming that I want things I won't pursue? I should want to run a marathon. I should want to, whatever, sleep 7.5 hours a night, and not get up, not drink on Friday, whatever it is. And I really don't want to do that. And so I'm shitting on myself, and I'm just creating my own little shame engine, which I don't find particularly generative. Now, if you're genuinely guilty and you're making a mistake, you're mailing it in, okay, and you want some people to help support your discipline and your commitment, that's great. I just got off the call this morning with TD3, Tom and 3 Daves, my 51-year-old support group. I formed in 1974, and we call each other on our crap. And so you want some people around you spotting you on the equipment, so you bring your best game. But don't sign up for stuff you're not signed up for.
Yeah, amen. I think you've got to want it, but you've got to want it bad. I think people, especially in the era of social media, there are these ideals that are projected on social media, because when you're on social media, you're scrolling through people's highlight reels, essentially, while living your own gag reel.
Yeah.
And people see things that they want on social media, but what is not often disclosed on social media is the hard work that it has taken to achieve those goals.
Yeah, or at least to appear that you have.
Yeah.
Look, I'm sympathetic. When I was, 34, 33, something like that. I happen to be a very religious person, and I noticed that my prayer life, which I thought was important, sucked. I was lousy at it, and so I was talking to this older woman who was a deeply spiritual person and a PhD psychologist, so she's really highly trained, very strong truth-telling kind of person. I said, Margot, I'm really struggling because, I really do want to pray. I want to pray more, and try some. I just can't get there. I don't understand what the problem is. Keep getting my own. I really don't get it. And I wasn't lying. I don't get my own non-performance. And she goes, you just don't want it. I go, no, I really do. She goes, no, you don't. And we got in this I was really pissed. Like, where do you get off? I am sincerely in a conundrum here. And she goes, no, you're not. If you cared, you'd be praying. And you're not praying, so you don't care about praying. You're lying to yourself.
Wow.
She's basically saying, thanks for sharing, Dave, but you're full of shit. and I was really offended. And about 15 years later, I went, oh, now I get it. So I think I wasn't being deluding in an intentional way, but I didn't have the freedom to objectively stand back and watch myself and go, well, Dave, the last 15 times that you set the alarm for 6:30 to get up early and pray for a half hour before the kids wake up, you just flipped off the alarm and went back to bed. Do you notice that? So every single time, you just rolled back over and went back to sleep. You'd rather sleep than pray. So if that's what's actually going, your problem isn't the technique of getting up. Your problem is you're not ready to do this. I should be asking a different question. So then the question is, I guess I really just think I should be praying. I don't really want to. Why don't I want to? And that's a different question. So very often when there's this thing we keep not doing, your apparent confusion at why it's not working is probably blocking you from what's really going on.
Well, also in the moment you were choosing what you wanted then versus what you wanted most. And then
so my narrative was, but after the 14th or 15th time, wouldn't what I want most start to creep in at least a little bit? Because there are other examples of things I did want most that I would care about. And I would show up for. We were terribly busy. We had small children. My wife and I weren't having sex very often. We found we need to make time for that. I made time for that.
Are we in a crisis of meaning right now?
I think we are. Bill and I chatted for 18 to 24 months after we sort of conceived the book. We ended up with a whiteboard one day and said, I think there's a book there. And then, but do we deserve to write it? Because the underlying wisdom that informs why this stuff might be helpful has been around for a long time. The wisdom traditions have known this for a long time. It really is largely about the present moment. It's got some really good reframes for the present way we think about the problem. There are 23 exercises in it, all of which are accessible within minutes. So hopefully it's a pretty quick ladder to impact in changing the way you experience these things. But I don't think it's brand new. And so we were saying, are we wasting our time and wasting the paper? Or are we taking a new take on an old wisdom that the modern world needs to hear? And we actually decided we didn't know. And then our agent said, I think there is a book here. Why don't we let the publishers decide? So we said, okay, we'll make the effort to write a proposal, which is a fair bit of work. And if the publishers think people want to read this book, we'll let them read the book. And they sure did. So we said, okay. And after you take the advance, you really should write the book. So we wrote the book. But in the process, I think what is going on, especially, for Gen Z and down, is there's got to be more than this. I was made for more than this, and no one's telling me how to get it, and I don't feel confident I'm going to get to, and I really feel stuck. So this isn't as normative as it once was, and people are in some real struggle. We've lost the institutions that used to form people, whether it was the church or whether it was your neighborhood or whether it was your family. Everybody's kind of making themselves up from scratch on their own, stuck in their own little Zoom box, and they're lonely and they're hurting. So I think we need a couple of aids, and we're just trying to give people some tools.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, the idea of the environment and like environment design.
Yeah,
and how
space design. Yeah,
yeah, space design. How can we better architect, better design, or curate our environments to be more conducive of meaning making?
Well, one of the simplest things we can do is get back in the conversation. So we talk about formative community, and what we mean by that is a different kind of a conversation. It's a conversation around intent, not content. So just allowing people, if I'm in the conversation with you because you're a becoming human being and I'm a becoming human being, well, how's that becoming going for you, Max? What are you trying to become toward at this particular point in your life? If we were in that conversation with each other, we start actually feeling like we're part of something that's bigger than ourselves, and it makes more sense to us. We really are social animals. It's not just emotional contagion. We now know consciousness is in fact a collective reality. So we put people in these conversations all the time, complete strangers, in these seemingly very intimate conversations, and they work surprisingly well because it turns out you almost can't hear yourself by yourself. We're made to be in community. We're made to be in relationship. And if I get to be around other people who are having a conversation, thinking reflectively and conversing about these kind of issues on a regular basis, it starts working a lot better. So just, if nothing else, find a place to have the conversation.
And you listed off a few places that have traditionally been facilitative of these conversations.
Yeah.
Church, synagogue,
school.
Can social media be used in a productive way?
Well, I think
in this regard.
I think we could be technologically interrelated in meaningful ways. I mean, whether social media itself, whether or not my Facebook page is actually going to bring me meaning, I'm a little skeptical. First, it's got so much momentum going the other way. I think turning that boat at this speed is going to be a little tough. But we can absolutely leverage these technologies. I mean, we've seen people have profoundly enlivening engagements with one another, even almost strangers, on Zoom. So it does facilitate that. So I think we can absolutely use technology, but I don't necessarily think it's not about anything performative. It's got to be facilitative. Those are really different verbs.
Has there been an experience that you've had that most changed your understanding of meaning?
Wow. Well, not to be melodramatic, but the truthful answer to your question is, my wife's death. There's no question that going through, during the year 2020, my wife Claudia was, on her first day in the diagnostic office, declared terminal. So she went in one day thinking she had bronchitis and came out with terminal cancer.
Oh, man.
And she had anywhere from 6 to 24 months, depending how the chemo went. We got 9. So that year of her dying, which is the 2020 year, so we had the 3 C's: COVID, cancer, and conflagration, because the California fires were right nearby. We were less than a mile from an evacuation zone. So It was a pretty heavy year. And so going through that was profound. And then the first year after her death, the initial grief year, was profoundly impactful. And it really changed the way I see everything.
That's horrible.
Well, no. No, it's not. First of all, it's profoundly normal. This death thing, it's going around. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's getting very popular. Everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing it.
Now, there's a timing question, So, I mean, a seemingly morally premature death is sad. The conclusion we made when Claudia first got the diagnosis, we sat on it. We didn't tell anybody for 8 days. We said, we got to figure out what the story is here. How do we hold this? And she came up with, it's sad, not tragic. She was 69. There's really nothing on the bucket list I need to have done. So there's nothing like, the kids are raised. We're kind of good to go here. I really wanted that other 15 years we claimed we would give each other. So she broke the contract. We're going to have a conversation later about that. But nonetheless, so I'm outing early, but, it's just sad. It's not tragic. And so you have to frame what the story is going into that experience. So that was really unwanted, but it's not horrible. It's just the way things come down. And so what we did is, once you accept it, so we talk about radical acceptance as part of the mindset for a designer, radical acceptance plus availability. If you want to have a meaningful life, you have to be in reality and available to what it's going to offer you. So we said, okay, we're dying. What's dying got to offer? This is part of the human experience, has been forever. There's got to be a gift here. And we found huge gifts, but you have to be available to them. So it wasn't wanted. And if we had resisted it all the way down, no, it would have just been horrible.
My friend James Sexton says that marriage either ends in death or divorce. And if you had to choose one, you'd probably choose death.
Yeah, I've done both. I'm about to marry for the third time. So I was married for 24 years to a wonderful woman who's a fabulous mother. We were really good at all the engineering of domesticity and terrible at husband and wife. Finally put the dog down as an act of kindness. We're still friends. Got married to the love of my life, and then she outed on the cancer thing 15 years early. Okay, fine. And oddly enough, yet another sentient being is willing to sign up to hang. I would not live with me if I didn't have to.
Wow.
But somebody else is volunteering to do it. So this amazing woman named Frisch Brand is willing to get married to me.
Mazel tov.
And indeed, all love ends in loss. All love ends in loss. The first time I heard that, I went, wait, that's not true. Then I went, oh my God, it is true. So yeah, as soon as you fall in love, you just signed up for a bunch of pain. So I feel kind of grateful that God apparently decided that I was the stronger party and I had the capacity to learn the lessons that being the survivor of love would teach. Because Claudia didn't have to go through that.
What gives your life meaning now?
Oh gosh. Frankly, not to be selfish, but I mean, it's kind of firing on all cylinders. I mean, I get to do interesting work. I get to do meaningful work. I get to do work that matters. I find myself sitting in conversations with people all the time, in individual and small groups, in large groups, about the single most important thing on their minds, on their hearts. That's the hardest ticket to get to any show, is a front row center seat to the heart of the matter in another soul's life. I happen to be sitting in that seat about 20 hours a week. So I'm incredibly humbled and grateful for that. I'm healthy enough at this age to get to do fun stuff, so I get to sail my boat and ride my motorcycle and play with my dog and my 8 bicycles and my 11 grandkids, and talk to interesting people like Max and try to change things for the better if I possibly can. And now, I'm not drowning in money because I kept walking away from money to buy time back because I wanted to see my kids. I kept giving up my career over and over again, kind of foolishly. But I have enough money to get by and pretty comfortably. So that means I've got enough time to smell the roses pretty deeply. And all these tools we talk about, we've tried, and they work. So I'm incredibly grateful.
What question should people ask themselves more frequently?
What gift is your longing trying to give you?
What gift is your longing trying to give you?
Yeah, longing, this thing we desire, this thing that's pulling us that hasn't quite happened yet, of which we would like some more, arrives as in a little bit of a form of pain, kind of a winsome pain. But it really is this gift. It's what keeps you moving into the human experience. And so what do you which of your longings looks like it's the most life-giving, looks like it's the one that loves you the most, it respects you the most? And if you could give into it some, where would it take you? And you might be scared to start going down that pathway. You might be confused about how to go down that pathway. It might feel risky in terms of loss and what if it doesn't work. But give yourself a chance for your longing to take you to a place that will at least grow you, whether it works or not.
Lean into it a little bit.
Yeah, lean into your longing.
If not a lot.
If not a lot. You don't have to tip over right away. You don't have to bet the farm. You don't have to jump out of the airplane. But, lean into your longing.
Beautifully put. Well, thanks for writing this book. It's a fascinating topic, fascinating conversation, fascinating set of principles applied onto something that we all as humans struggle with.
We want you to believe that this is easier than they said. Flow is more accessible than you thought. You don't have to meditate for 7 hours between 5 and 7 in the morning like you used to think. Everybody's frankly performatizing everything. You're like, hey man, I'm getting really good at my meditation practice. I think I can get my 20 minutes down to 18. You just transactionalized the experience of meditation. So we call it flipping the switch. You can access this way of being, for a couple of seconds, almost any time. It's not as hard as they told you. And start small, see how it goes. We're going to come back tomorrow and try again.
Love it. Well, Dave, thanks for coming out. I've got one last question for you, but before
thanks for having me. This is really generous of you.
Of course, so fun. Where can people pick up your book, How to Live a Meaningful Life? And if you're on social media, drop your handle so that people can follow you.
Yeah, come on down. So the website is designing your life, designingyour.life. There's a period between, just your and life. So designingyour.life will take you to everything. You'll find quickly an invitation to buy the book. You'll find an invitation to sign up for the newsletter, the new newsletter, Fully Alive by Design. That's also the Instagram handle. So try those things on. And if you're not even sure about these, look, sign up for the newsletter once a week. Short little thing with a think, a learn, and a do. Think about this. Maybe you can learn this. Try this. So do a couple of those tries. After a couple of weeks, if they work, then buy the book and see if you can do more. Where can you buy the book? Anywhere books are sold. Hardback, Kindle, audio, you name it, we got it.
Amazing. What does living a genius life mean to you?
Paying attention to the powerful truths that you know are true but haven't fully responded to yet. Kind of leaning into that genius self, that thing that's really true about you, go with it.
Go with it. Amen. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you. Leave a rating and review on your podcast app of choice if this episode resonated with you. And I will catch you on the next episode. Peace, everybody.
Peace out.
Peace out. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.